Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. It's good. Hare Krishna. Welcome to the Saturday morning lecture program here at ISV. Apologize, there was some delay. I left my laptop and we're trying to make shift another laptop. It was a Mac versus Windows and all of those problems. So, characteristic of the material world. So, it's good. Hare Krishna. Is that okay? Voice, can you hear? Yes. Can my voice also reach Goloka? Right. Let's start with Mangalachara prayers. Om Gyantimirandasya Jnananjanshalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurve Namah Shri Chaitanya Manobhestam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagra Jatam Sagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Deen Bandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastute Namo Brahmand Devaya Go Brahmanitaya Cha Jagaditaya Krishnaya Govindaya Namo Nama Tapte Kanchani Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarubhascha Kripa Sidhubhye Vacha Patitanam Pavnebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Nama Namo Mahavadanyaye Krishna Prem Pradayate Krishna He Krishna Chaitanya Namane Gaurtavishe Nama Namam Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Siddhanta Bhakti Vedanta Swamiti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunivadi Paschati Deshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakti Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna. So today we'll be talking about top-down consciousness. This presentation today is actually a dialogue between two people. The first person is actually, he's met this other person on a tree, and the first person, he is very much into enjoying life and likes doing things just like a normal person. He goes to work and he earns his money, and then he goes out, and his hobby is to collect apples, fruits. So he'll go to a tree and he will collect these apples, and then he'll come back and eat them, and he has fun eating it. And he is a nice person, doesn't do anything bad, normally a nice person, makes sure his things are in proper shape. This other person is also there, and every time this first person goes, he always meets this other person on the tree. And this other person does nothing. I mean, he just sits there and he stays on a branch, it's a little higher level branch, and he just keeps watching, and that's all that he does. So the first person's name is, he actually tries to identify himself by his car. He likes his car. He actually has very cool car. I don't know if it's a Porsche or something like that, Lamborghini, whatever. It's a good, cool looking car. And he calls himself I mean, he recites his car so much that he calls himself car, my car, my car, my karma, karma, karma. And his name became Karmi. So his name is Karmai. And the other person, actually, he just doesn't want to identify with anything. He doesn't say anything. He just keeps watching this first person. He comes to the tree, picks up the fruits and go back. But if you ask him what his name is, then he would say, I really don't have a name. I mean, all names are mine, but you can just call me name. And he said, oh wow, what's that? I mean, what kind of a name is that? So he says, my name is Name, Nama, Namai, I Nam, Namai, 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 Nimai, Nimai, Nimai. So the first person's name is Karmai, and the second person's name is Nimai. So this presentation today is a dialogue between these two people, Karmai and Nimai, who actually go to a tree and meet there every day. So one day, interestingly, this Karmai actually got a little puzzled. He said, well, I come every day and this guy's watching me. Let me go and ask him what's going on. I mean, why are you just sitting there and doing nothing? At least eat the fruits, right? I mean, I'm taking away all the fruits. The tree has a lot of fruits, so it's not that the fruit will go away. But this person looks like he's either cuckoo, something's wrong with him. Why does he just keep watching me? So they start having a dialogue. So they say, oh, okay, what do you think should be doing and what is going on with you? And I said, you know what? Nimai says, I'm into consciousness. And he said, wow, what's that? And I said, something that comes top down. So he doesn't say much and he just says that. So Karma, I request him, can you speak up? I mean, can you tell me something more about it? So let's go into the next page and we'll figure out. So he says that this top-down thing is initiated at the highest level. So I took this dictionary meaning for the word top-down. It really means that something is coming from the higher level. So Karma doesn't like things, and anyway, we'll see where it goes. So Nimai opens up and he says, you know what? Whatever I have to say is captured in this book called Bhagavad Gita. It's a good dialogue, and I had it many thousand years back. And Karma says, wow, you had a dialogue thousands of years back, and what have you been doing since then? He said, I've been silent and just watching you. So they get a little puzzled. But anyway, so he says, I don't have time for this. I got to go out for my car and I'm going to go out driving the entire world. But can you just tell me in brief what it says in this book? So Nimai tells him, this book says surrender. And he says, can you give me a little more explanation about that? So we'll just try to get some explanations about this. So for people who are who've been practicing some kind of Krishna consciousness would know this, but for those others aren't, this is probably one of the most famous verses from Bhagavad Gita. So, do you want to say this? Prabhu, do you want to say this? Sabdharma Parityajya?
Sarvadharman Parityajya
Sarvadharma Parityajya
Mamekam Sharanam Vraja
Mamekam Sharanam Vraja
Aham Tvam Sarva Papebhyo
Aham Tvam Sarva Papebhyo
Mokshayishyami Masuchaha
Mokshayishyami Masuchaha. Right, great. So here Nimai tells him, see, what I said that time was abandon all varieties of religion and just surrender unto me. I should deliver you from all sinful reactions. Do not fear. So Karma is saying, surrender. That doesn't make sense. I mean, but anyway, what will you deliver me from? I mean, I don't have any sins. What sins are you talking about? I'm a nice person. I don't kill anyone. I don't hurt anyone. And I just generally take care of people. Anyone who comes in my path, I help him. And you know what Nimai says? Rajo, Koni. And then he just keeps quiet. And then Karmi said, what did you just say? He said, I actually help people. I give charity. I give donations. I do a lot of other good things too. I really don't have any sins. So then Nimai says, Sato, Guni. And then he stops there. Anyway, so they continue having this. Some of the things Karmi cannot understand. Some of the things Nimai doesn't tell very well. But they go back. So he says, tell me more about it. And then when he talks more about surrender, he says, can you surrender? So Karmi is thinking, and then he says, never. no, I can't do this. I mean, if you had asked me for $100, maybe I can give that to you, provided you give it back to me in about 5-10 years back after 10% returns. But surrender, no, it doesn't make sense. So he says, well, Nehemiah tells him, how are we going to do consciousness? And he said, oh, let me see. You know what? I have a lot of people on this earth who can help me. Let me try to figure out what people who are my friends over here on this earth can do. So he starts thinking about them. Can scientists help me? Can sociologists, psychologists, all those people help me? So he starts going there and he starts going into, he says, I can't accept this top-down philosophy, so we'll go bottom-up. Right? I mean, this is where I am. I can see things beyond this, and my world is beautiful. So he says, let's look into the language. Let's see what English language teaches us. So he's saying, consciousness is the state of being awake. I'm awake 16 hours a day. See, 2/3 of my time already conscious. And Nehemiah says, no, that's not it. So Karmi says, well, it's the awareness by mind of itself and the world. So even when I'm sleeping, all these guys tell me that I'm dreaming and my mind is active. See, I'm aware even the other 8 hours too. I'm conscious. And Nehemiah says, no, this doesn't sound very right. See, you're talking about the world and we're talking about outer world experiences. So Nehemiah says that, and Karmi takes a step back, says, let me shoot another arrow. This language thing is not helping me. So now he says, let me find out more about consciousness. So he goes to a psychologist and says, can you help me? And the psychologist says, consciousness has been taking ups and downs since the 19th century. That's when all of these yogis started bombarding US and all the universities in the world. So I can't tell you much, but I can tell you, right now it's going up. You want to know some theories about for psychology? And he said, this is not very helpful. So he said, okay, let me go and find someone else who can help me. So the Karmi goes to psychophysicist. And the psychophysicist tells him, this is all about cognition, all about behavior. Consciousness is a connection. You see this connection thingy over here? It's a connection between subjective experiences and cognitions and behavior. And just to give you more idea about what this is, so it is about visual, auditory, emotional, imagistic things. And the Karmi is scratching his head and saying, if I don't understand this, how am I going to tell Nehemiah about this? No, I'm not going to talk about this. So then he says, let me go and try someone else. So then he tries a hypnosis. And he goes to him and asks him, what is consciousness? And then the hypnosis guy tells him, you know what? Hypnosis suggestion has been widely used as a technique for studying basic sciences regarding human consciousness. And now Karmi is jumping. I got someone who could talk to me about consciousness. But he says, tell me more about it. So the person who does hypnosis says, the utility of hypnosis as an experimental method for modulating consciousness, as a model for studying healthy and pathological conditions, and as a therapeutic vehicle. And then Karmi says, did you mention something about pathological conditions? Cognition. So Karmi is taken a step back saying, pathological? No. I can't tell this to Nehemiah. Because if I tell him something about pathological, he's going to come back saying, this is pathetic. So this path is not good. All right. So then he says, let me try something else. So then he goes down and looks around in the world and finds a neuroscientist and says, you guys are great. What do you do? He said, what we do is we study the electrical pulses that come out from the brain, and there are synapses that goes to the nerves, and we can try to understand what all these people are doing in the world in terms of awareness and consciousness. So Karmi is really happy. And then he says, can you tell me what all other things you've done? So the neuroscientist says, we do a lot of research in consciousness, and I can tell you. So let's see what the neuroscientist says. So what he's saying is, I'll read it out over here because I got this from a paper. And he says, as we succeed in explaining more and more cognitive operations in terms of patterns of electrical activity or specific neural circuits are related to nerves, it seems we move even farther from bridging the gap between the physical and the mental. Now Karmi is taken a step back saying, this is not looking very good. Anyway, he says, tell me more about it. So the neuroscientist says, indeed, each advance seems to be further relegate mental activity to the state of epiphenomenon, something that emerges from the physical activity of the brain, but that plays no part in controlling it. Now Karmi is saying, I'm going to a place where I don't even have any control. And then he says, it seems difficult to reconcile a reductionist reverse engineering approach to brain functions. And then Karmi says, stop. This is not going very right. This is not what I can go and tell Nimai. So he says, I need to get out of this place. Let me find someone else. But as you can see, neuroscience itself cannot bridge the gap between physical and mental, and things are dividing. So he tries another bottom approach. He says, let me go to a sociologist. And the sociologist tells him, free will, that's a big illusion. And what does he say? So he says, and you know who the people who are saying this, by the way, the world famous people, Stephen Hawking and Maldonado. And in their paper in 2010, they're saying, it is our physical brain, it's over here, following the known laws of science that determines our action and not some agency that exists outside those laws. So they're very strong saying it's a brain that determines every action. So it seems that we are no more than biological machines, and that free will is just an illusion. Karmi holds back saying, these guys look to be in command. They're the world famous scientists, Stephen Hawking. They've written a book of time or whatever, and looks like they're talking some sense. But hold on, I can buy this myself, because he's saying we are just biological machines. I like my car and I drive it every day. What he's saying doesn't make any sense. So he might be right in his own sphere. I can't tell this to Nimai either. So now he goes back and says, this is not good either. So then he goes into consciousness lifestyle. You know, these days it's very popular in the world to follow a very conscious lifestyle. Just like about 40 years back, it was very famous to get a guru. Every Hollywood star had a guru. So similar like that. And you know what they're talking about over there? So just read out the things. So here's the things, 18 unmistakable signs of spiritual awakening. And the things that they talk about are intensified perception, increased presentness, timelessness, awareness, aliveness, harmony, inner quietness, transcendence, empathy, compassion, all great words. But Karmi is scratching his head saying, okay, well-being, deathlessness, oh, I never die, that's good. Non-group identity, wide perspective, heightened morality, appreciation, curiosity, altruism, enjoyment of inactivity, ability to just be, I'm just existing, beyond accumulation, attachment, autonomy, enhanced authentic relationships. Karmi says, wow, this is so cool. And then he goes to Nimai, and Nimai says, you missing the point. And then Nimai says, why are you missing the point? So Nimai tells him, Karmi, these are just effects, they are not the cause. You're not getting the root of consciousness, you're getting to the effects of consciousness. So this is not good. So then he says, it's not about awakening, it's about realizing your true self. That is what it is. So then Karmi says, all right, this is not good. All these lifestyle guys, they can't help me either. So he tries another bottom approach. He's looking for someone else in the world who can help him. So he figures out these people, and they're really cool. What they do is, it's called the Gangsfeld effect. They put these ping pong balls, they cut it into two halves, put it on their eyes, and they also put some sound. And it's supposed to actually give them some kind of a hallucination. And what they're trying to do is, trying to do extraterrestrial search based on this. So, and they started defining science around it and things like that. And you know what Nimai tells him after this? Nimai tells him, this is a mental concoction. All they're doing is playing ping pong balls on your brain. So this is not good. And then Karmi saying, this didn't work either. Let me try something else. And now he's getting really desperate. So he says, I have an anti-materialism guru who tells me, and let's look at this, what he's saying. In the great scheme of things, possessions and money are meaningless. And then this person who is teaching, he's obviously a Karmi too, right? He says, can you give me 50 quid then if money doesn't matter? And Karmi is like, this is not anti-materialism. So then he goes out, he says, I do yoga. And you can see him doing yoga. That's funny yoga, right? And Nimai, he tells, I am a great guy, I can do consciousness, I can do yoga. And Nimai tells him, in your dreams. Because when you do yoga and you don't have a proper bona fide order to do things, you can see this kid, they are all in a family trying to do nirvana. And this kid is saying, what is he saying? Aname, do you know what he's saying? Are we there yet? Because when am I going to reach nirvana? Because after I get to nirvana, I can go out and play with my friends in the parking lot. So you can see, yoga doesn't take you very far the way we do it in this world. So then this Karmi person says, let me try something else. He said, I want to be a Jnani. And then, you know, Jnanis get these powers, right? mystic powers. And here's, you see what these Gyanis doing? Because they are worldly people, and even they're trying to be Gyani. So he's saying, are you thinking what I am not thinking? So they are trying to guess others' thoughts, right? So Nimai says, you see, they are lost in themselves. They're just trying to figure out what the other person is doing. This is not consciousness. This is unconsciousness. So he gets out of them, and then the Karmi says, let me find someone else. And there you go. He found a Kundalini person. And the Kundalini Guru tells him, evolution is coiled within you. So just get it up, raise it up. It's like a coiled serpent, and then there's chakras, and you can do all of those things and focus on the chakras and Mooladhara and Swasthan and all of those things and open your third eye. And he said, and then he tells, I can get consciousness from this. I don't have it today, but Nimai, I can get it. So Nimai tells him, you know what? After doing all of those things, you still will be short-sighted. And he said, how? And here's the answer. He says, your third eye will need a contact lens. You can't see very far with the way you think things. Because in Kali Yuga, you don't do Kundalini Yoga. If you do Kundalini Yoga, then you are anyway lost. So this, you see the name over here? Your yoga is myopic. It's myopic. You can see very far. So the Karmi says, let me try someone else then. So he says, no, I have to give up. I can't keep doing this. I mean, I have lost to this person. So then he says, I give up. And you know what Nimai does? For the first time in the history of mankind, he jumps up and he says, you did not just say that. Did you say you surrender? And he's jumping saying, surrendered. So the first time this other person on the tree gets active is when the Karmi surrenders. If you don't surrender, the soul, the other person, Nimai, super soul, he doesn't get active. So there you go. He says, you really said surrender? That's good. So they said, yeah, I'd surrender. Now tell me about it. But remember, just because you surrender doesn't mean that you really believe it in your heart. So anyway, we'll see how this dialogue goes. So then Nimai starts talking to him saying, let me give you my 2 cents. So he's instead of saying cents, he says, let me give you my 2 sukriti. Because Nimai talks everything spiritual, right? So he's a conscious person. So sukriti, as we know, is the spiritual currency, right? It's something that Krishna says doesn't go away. It stays with you. So he says, now let me tell you the top-down approach. Your bottom-up approach did not really work, right? So he said, you know why you didn't get it? Because you're trying to use a torch, a light, to search for a bulb that is giving black light. Is that possible to search the light, a black light that is coming out using a torch that gives white light? Impossible. So that's the problem. You're trying to search from the place where you shouldn't be searching. So then he says, you need to read Bhagavad Gita. And then he says, this knowledge is the king of education, the purest knowledge, gives direct perception of self by realization. So at this point, we'll start talking about this specific verse 9.2. And I request if we can all take turns to speak on that. And Prabhu, you want to speak?
Rajvidya Rajaguhyam
Rajvidya Rajaguhyam
Pavitramedam Uttamam
Pavitramidam Uttamam
Pratyaksavagamam Dharmyam
Pratyaksavagamam Dharmyam
Susukham Kartum Abhyayam
Susukham Kartum Avyayam. Thank you. So, we'll go to translation. So the translation is, this knowledge is the king of education. That's what Krishna is talking about the Bhagavad Gita. It's not just education, it's just not the book. It is the king. The most secret of all secrets. Why does he say secrets? It's not that we all have Bhagavad Gita, right? And ISKCON has tons of it. And we rarely give it out to people. So why is it a secret? The secret is not because when we understand something is secret, we physically confine it. And this is not about physical confinement. It is about mental acceptance. So we are not ready to accept it. And because of that, what happens is that it is kept a secret. So it's an open secret, unfortunately. It is the purest knowledge. Why is it pure? Because it comes directly from God. And because it gives direct perception of the self by realization. So that is very, very important, because if you look at the word over here, pratyaksh, by direct experience. So when people challenge others who are doing spirituality and saying, where's God? And I don't believe it, and I can't see it. Can you bring him here? And I can do anything that I want. So the answer is that you can't get God the way you're asking. As I was telling you, you can't search a black light with white. You need to be able to have the eyes to see that black light. And that doesn't happen by default, because where we are, by definition, we cannot see. So it's a silly question really to ask, saying, can I see God right now? If you want to see God, you need to change, because that is the right way to do things. Anyway, the more important thing over here is that you can get an experience, and that experience is available. In other words, it's not that you are doing something blind, it's not superstition, it's not blind faith. We will be able to see God or experience God as we progress. It will come. So it is something that is available to direct perception. It is the perfection of religion. And why is it called perfection of religion? This is another very, very important thing. If you notice in Srila Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita and all other literature that he gave and all the direction that he gave, he keeps talking about one thing. Obviously, it's all about Krishna consciousness. But the point that he's trying to drive home is there are many, 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 many levels in any good activity that you do. And amongst all the good activities, going towards God is the right activity. And amongst that, doing the way that it is Krishna is telling in Bhagavad Gita is the perfection of religion. So you can actually be doing religion and not be doing something perfect. This is a very important take. It is everlasting, it is joyfully performed. So that's very good, because when it is everlasting, that's a fundamental concept in this material world. Things are temporary or transient in nature. Time over here is a big killer. And when you get out of this world, then time becomes an enabler. Why? Because it doesn't kill. Not only does it non-negatively help us, also positively helps us. How does it positively help us? Because it keeps, it's not like stationary, but what happens is the bliss, the joy part keeps increasing with time. So time is conducive to our intent, which is bliss, getting or enjoying. Whereas over here, time is actually opposite. It's reciprocal of us trying to enjoy. So we may think we enjoy, but the time is doing is only one thing. You got your enjoyment because of your karma, and time is trying to take away that. So time is a big killer in the material world. Anyway, I think we can read one or two paragraphs here. So, Hare Krishna. You want to read up, Prabhu? Go ahead.
This chapter of Bhagavad Gita is called the King of Education because it is the essence of all doctrines and philosophies explained before. Among the principal philosophers in India are Gautama, Kanada, Kapila, Yajnavalkya, Sandilya, and Vaishvanara. And finally, there is Vyasadeva, the author of the Vedanta Sutra. So there is no dearth of knowledge in the field of philosophy or transcendental knowledge. Now, the Lord says that this 9th chapter is the king of all such education, the essence of all knowledge that can be derived from the study of the Vedas and different kinds of philosophy. It is the most confidential because confidential or transcendental knowledge involves understanding the difference between the soul and the body. And the king of all confidential knowledge culminates in devotional service.
You can go on one more.
Generally, people are not educated in this confidential knowledge. They're educated in external knowledge. As far as ordinary education is concerned, people are involved with so many departments: politics, sociology, physics, chemistry, mathematics, astronomy, engineering, etc. There are so many departments of knowledge all over the world and many huge universities. But there is, unfortunately, no university or educational institution where the science of the spirit soul is instructed. Yet, the soul is the most important part of the body. Without the presence of the soul, the body has no value. Still, people are placing great stress on the bodily necessities of life, not caring for the vital soul.
Thanks. So let's stop here and pause and just contemplate on this. This is very, very important, because we live this life believing we are embodied souls. I mean, even people who are liberated and stay on this earth are still leading a life in this body. Their activities, their thoughts and processes and actions all are liberated in nature, but they're still living in a body. So for us who are not liberated, when we lead lives, right, we forget that we are essentially inherently souls. And because of that forgetfulness, the actions that we take, our thoughts, our beliefs, all are centered around the body. And even when you are trying to progress in spirituality, that still sticks around. Consciously, it's very difficult to get out of that thought. Very few people do it, and especially people who are actually the passive yogis, for example, the Dhyan yogis and the Gyan yogis, they are actively trying to get out of it. So passive yogis are actively trying to get out of it. If you look at the active yogis, the bhakti yogis and the karma yogis, right? They are indirectly, implicitly trying to get out of it. Just think about it. So you have to, it's like worth contemplating. They don't actually say, I'm not bored, I'm sorry. For example, karma yogis actually like to work. And when they work, they are trying to not drive the results from the fruits from that work, right? So they are saying, I am working with this body. So their effort is using the body. Same with the bhakti yogis, right? They are actually trying to serve whoever their Ishtadevta is. For the people who are not cognizant, and for the people who are Krishna conscious, they know that Devta and all of these things don't help because you have to put the water at the root. And for that, they are going directly at the source, which is Krishna. So those people also, bhakti yogis, are also not trying to actively say, I am not body, I am soul. They're saying, I am body, and this body is to be used for the service of Krishna. And it's called, in this world, it's called obviously Yukta Vairagya. Whatever resources is available to that soul, or to that body, however you identify, depending on your path that you've reached so far, we put it into Krishna's service. In other words, there's no distinction being made saying, I am soul and I am not body, and therefore if I have to help something over here, if Gaulodi Prabhu says, can you go and put this flower to Prabhupada, I say, sorry, soul doesn't have a hand, how can I pick that flower up? So no. So they are actively trying to do things and implicitly getting to realize the fact that I am not body and I am soul. It's a deep thing, and maybe it's a separate lecture, and maybe I'm not that capable to do that, so someone else more senior can talk about it. But it does happen. That's written in our books, and that is how things happen. So these the passive and active parts over here are very critical. And one other thing to note over here is that, as Prabhupada is saying, that not many departments of knowledge invest into the soul aspect of things. So while you don't do things actively, or whether you do things passively, the framework has to be there, and that framework is absolutely missing in today's world. In the olden times, almost everything was geared around that. I mean, if you want to get your daughter married to the next person in the next village, you would actually think about what will happen to the sanskaras and those things. So that is the framework of things. In today's world, if someone needs to get their daughter married off to someone else, and assuming that daughter already doesn't have 5 other people that she's already thinking about marrying, and she does abide with the family rules, then the first thing that this person would think is, what are my chances of doing business with the opposite party? See how the thoughts have changed? So this soul aspect, what is correct aspect, the righteousness aspect is totally gone away. And we don't even realize this. This is the way Kali Yuga actually makes us live life. Same person with a daughter getting married thousands of years back in the previous yugas, which were much more benign and much better, and in today's yuga. It's a sea difference. And unless we see that difference, the SEA difference will not be apparent to us. So it's very, very important that we look at that part. Anyway, I think we covered some part of this. So let's go on to that dialogue now and see what he's saying. So Karmi and Nimai are talking about this, and Nimai has convinced him to read Bhagavad Gita and it is the king of all knowledge. So what does he say? So next thing he says, once you get the knowledge, you understand all the research that you did, all the sociologists and psychologists and everyone, they were talking about studying the brain. And once you come into consciousness, the true study, you have to look at the heart. I said, wow, how does that work? Karmi says, isn't heart the thing that pumps blood and gets cholesterol and those kind of things? And Nimai says, nah. It's not the brain that is thinking. Brain is just an instrument. Just like it's not the car that is driving. It's the person behind the wheels that is driving. So it's the heart that is using the brain as a physical tool to do activity, all the thoughts. So you need to understand the difference. He said, okay, fine. How does it matter? Where's the brain is in the head? Isn't the mind in the head too? He says, no, mind is not in the head. The mind is a covering. It's located in your heart. A mind is a wrapper around your soul. And he says, oh wow. So are you saying I think from my heart? And are you trying to tell me that if someone has to think, instead of scratching their head, they should really be scratching their hearts? I said, yes. If once you realize that you're not body and your soul, you'd actually be scratching your head. And all great yogis think from their heart. Yeah, heart. Yeah, so you have to scratch your heart to really get the right thoughts. So if you're super conscious, that's what you scratch. When you're semi-conscious, you probably scratch your neck or something, depending on if you're doing Kundalini yoga and your chakra is open, or if you have a contact lens there, then you scratch and the contact lens comes out. So all of those things. So he says, this is what happens when you get to the king of education. And he says, what is mentality? So he tries to define the mentality. So first thing he says, mind is a big problem, right? So it's not the brain, it's the mind that's the problem. And let me try to tell you the problem is. So this, we'll go to Bhagavad Gita chapter 6, verse 6. But in essence it is saying is, for one who has conquered the mind is the best of friends. And for one who has failed to do so, the mind will remain the greatest enemy. And to conquer the mind, you have to do consciousness-based activities or yoga. And if you're not doing that, then you might think I'm a psychologist and whatever. But your mind is a troubled mind. Not brain, mind. It's a troubled mind. It's looking for returns in the karmic world. So if I may be Einstein and I'll be making a really great invention, which is really a discovery because you really cannot invent anything in this karmic world. And when I'm doing that, the only thing I'm thinking about is, how do I present it in a paper? And will it make a big splash? And in today's world, how many likes will it get in the Facebook and things like that? So if I were Einstein in the 21st century, that's what I would be thinking. So this is a problem. We don't understand this thing, and he's saying, oh wow, he's a great person, he's very brainy. He is very brainy, he's not very mindy, unfortunately. So those kind of things have to be understood. So let's go into this verse quickly.
Bandhuratmananastasya
Bandhuratman manastasya
yena atma vitatmana jita
yenatmevatmana jita
anatmanastu satrutre
anatmanastu shatrutve
varte tatmeva satrutva.
varte tatmeva shatruvat. Yeah, I think one thing is that as we progress on this, we have to learn these verses. And I would raise my hands first. I'm not very good at them, so maybe after taking some blessings from Ananda Sakha Prabhu, I can probably pronounce them better. So what he's saying is what I said in the other slides is, for him who has conquered the mind is the best of friends. For one who has failed to do so, his mind will remain the greatest enemy. Why? Because our mind is jumping all over the world, right? And unless you're focused, which even scientists are focused, but only to the extent that they're solving a problem. That otherwise, they don't understand. So consciousness helps you focus mind where it should be, and that's what we do yoga for. Right? So let's get out of this guy. So having talked about that, then Nimai tells him there is duality. And he says, what's duality? He says duality is just two things. And he says, what two things? So he just asks him, what are you thinking right now? He's saying, as soon as I'm done with you, I'm going to go for a drive and eat some ice cream. And he says, see, I told you. You told me that you surrendered, but your mind is still full of so many things. So you need to understand between this real cool concept. I think Vaishya Prabhu talks a lot about mindfulness, right? So is the mindful with a double L or the mindful with a single L? And if it's full with a double L, that means you're investing your mind into this world. So that is what we call sense enjoyment, right? All of the artifacts, that's what it is worried about. So once he gets out of that, then he says, all right, explain me what God is. So he doesn't say that I am God. He just says, let me explain it to you. So in Bhagavad Gita chapter 9, verse number 4, God, obviously there's infinite definitions for God, but we'll take some simple ones. He says, by my unmanifested form, this entire universe is pervaded. So in simple terms, what it is saying is that God is all over. So that's one thing. So Karma is thinking, all over inside me also? And he doesn't say anything. But then Nimai tells him, all beings are in me, but I am not in them. Now Karma is getting suspicious. He's saying, I'm in you, but you're not in me. Are you someone special? And he says, special? And then Nimai, while saying this, says, yeah, right, I am. So anyway, so he says, then let me define more things about God. He says, I am in one sense everything, but I am independent. So that's very critical because we think God is kind of dependent. For example, the moment someone runs into a problem, they remember God. So isn't technically God dependent on you? Because God only was present in your thoughts only when I needed him, right? So who's calling the shots? God or me? Yeah, he's helping, so what? But unless I have a problem, he doesn't come and help me, right? So who is he really independent? No, he seems dependent. So Karmi is still not buying this God concept, but he says, fine, okay, if you say so. He says, can you explain me who else are there? Who am I? So he says, I will tell you, but let me tell you firstly this clutter that you saw in your brain, all of these things, what is that? So let me explain that to you. So he says, this is called matter. In Bhagavad Gita chapter 7 verse number 4, he says, earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence and false ego. Altogether these 8 constitute my separated material energies. So the critical thing is, Nimai says, when he's saying this, he says earth, water, fire, ether, air, ether, mind. And he points out, this is the mind that you're talking about, right? So firstly, it is not brain, it is mind, and this mind is material, it is matter, right? So once he highlights that, then he says, Karmi asks him, oh fine, if you're God, or whatever that God is, and if all of these things, my mind is what I use really, I thought I was the mind, and you say the mind is actually matter, then who am I? So then Nimai tells him, you are spirit. And then he defines spirit saying, there is another superior energy of mind which comprises the living entities who are exploiting the resources of this material inferior nature. So in one shot, he clarifies saying, your mind, all your thoughts, all your car, all your activity is inferior. You are superior. And suddenly Karmi says, yeah, I knew it. I'm superior. But then Krishna tells him, Nimai tells him, but you know I'm special, so don't forget that. So anyway, so once they talk about that, then Nimai tells him something more. He says, really, I'm a spirit too. And the only difference between me and you is, we'll talk about it, but we have something in common. And that's why I am here and you are here. So he says, what is it? And he says, there is oneness between you and me. And it's called qualitative oneness. And he explains that saying, between you and me, the qualities are all same. Do you get mad when your car runs out of gas and you are stranded on the freeway? He said, right. He said, I also get mad. So he says, you have a car? He said, no, it's not my car. I live for you. So when your car runs out of gas on the freeway and you get mad, I get mad because you're getting mad. And I just try to empathize with you. Otherwise, I have no connections. I don't get mad otherwise. I am outside all of these problems. He said, wow, you're my friend then. He said, now you're getting it. So he said, okay, what's the difference between me and you if everything is same? So he says, okay, fine. There is a little bit of difference, you see. You know what I am? I'm all of these things on the world, and I take care of people, and I do many things, and blah, blah, blah. And he keeps on going about himself, his opulence of the majestic, right? The chapter in Bhagavad Gita. So then Karmi says, stop. You talked so much about yourself. Tell me something about me. And then he tells him, you are a soul which is 1/10,000 the tip of the hair. He said, oh my God, so you that great? So now Karmi and Nimai are having a dialogue, and he says, this is a difference. It's just a matter of quantity. I'm just like infinite times you. So now he's understanding his position, saying, you spirit, I'm a spirit, but I'm a Jiva spirit, and you are a little great spirit. So then he says, but that's not the only problem. You are a little unfavorably disposed because you live in this matter things, and with your car and you're doing all your karma. You remember this, all states of being are manifested. In Bhagavad Gita chapter 7 verse number 12, he's saying, all states of being are manifested by my energy. This divine energy of mine is difficult to overcome. So he's saying, wow, we have both quality, but looks like you have the jackpot and I'm stuck in this world. So he's saying, yeah, that's the problem. You are unfavorably disposed. I think we can look at this verse. And we have Tadiya Prabhu over here. So, Prabhu, would you like to recite this verse? And we'll follow you. One line at a time. Yeah, so we'll repeat after you. No, 7:12 to 7:14. So the first part was 7:12. Let me correct. Yeah.
Are we?
Yes, Prabhu. 7:12.
ये चैव सात्विका भावा
ये चैव सात्विका भावा
राजसस्तामसश्च ये
राजसास्तामसाश्च ये
Mataha yeveti tan viddhi
Mata eveti tan vidhi
natvaham teshu te mayi.
na tav aham teshu te mayi. Thank you, Baba. So what Krishna is telling in this verse is, know that all states of being, be they of goodness, passion or ignorance, are manifested by my energy. I am in one sense everything, but I am independent. I am not under the modes of material nature, for they on the contrary are within me. Yes, and I think, so let me read in interest of time. All material activities, so that's the purport, all material activities in the world are being conducted under three modes of material nature. So this is a very important concept, because this is something that came out with Bhagavad Gita. All religions, all spirituality, all gurus, all transcendence, everything that is available as a literature with respect to consciousness or elevation yourself in this world does not talk about three modes of material nature. So if you are looking for one thing that is definitely patentable from Indian spirituality, then three modes of material nature is it, because it helps you understand why you do things when you are here. Everyone talks so great about going outside this world and you come and live in the heaven and all of those things, right? But the point is, why we do things what we have to do right now, unless you understand the three modes of nature, is very, very difficult. So very critical we understand this from Bhagavad Gita, and I just wanted to point out. Anyway, let me go on. Although these material modes of nature are emanations of Supreme God, He is not subject to them, and that's why Nima is different. For instance, under the state laws, one may be punished, but the king, the lawmaker, is not subject to that law. Similarly, these modes of material nature, they are called goodness, passion and ignorance, are emanations of the Supreme Lord, Krishna. But Krishna is not subject to material nature. Therefore, he is nirguna, which means that these gunas or modes, although issuing from him, do not affect him. Another very important concept, because from the half-baked spirituality coming from Indian gurus, Mahatmas, they understand nirguna, nirakar, they club things together, nir, God, formless. That's it, end of story. And that is not the way things work. Nirguna means just nirguna. He is not with the gunas of this world. And nirakar is obviously separate, without any akar, formless. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about nirguna over here. So, important things over here. That is one of the special characteristics of Bhagavan, or the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So since we talked about that, and I think Sudhin Madha Prabhu is right. Let me see if I can get to 7:14. So he's saying, deluded by the three modes, goodness, passion and ignorance, the whole world does not know me, whoever the modes and inexhaustible. So basically he's trying to differentiate why we both being spirits, all the jivas do not understand me. I just want to go to the end and just go to the next one. So now, Nimaya Krishna in this case is talking about this energy, the material energy, right? The one that is causing mindful with a double L, not mindfulness with a single L. He's saying this divine energy of mind, consisting of the three modes of material nature, is difficult to overcome. But those who have surrendered unto me can easily cross beyond it. So now, Nima is now broaching the topic of surrender. He's saying, yes, you're talking about surrender, but this is the way to do it. So we'll talk about that. But he's saying this is, you have to use this. Unless you surrender, you cannot get out of this world. So while the jiva is unfavorably disposed, the spirit, he's also saying, you are in a material prison and you are already enraptured around this. So you don't even realize, and you think that you're going to office, all this suit, tie, looking at news, trying to be abreast with knowledge. I mean, these in worldly sense are doing the right kind of things, right? You go to office in time, you work hard, and you come back in time and take care of your family, and you cook your own food, and you don't eat things dirty and keep your body in shape. All of these things are supposed to be the righteous kind of things. But this is all a prison, all these activities, because we identify ourselves with the body, and we don't understand that more than the body we are mind, and more than the mind we are intelligence, and more than intelligence we are false ego. And really the false part of the ego is also wrong. It's the true ego, and the true ego, even after you reach that, there's something else beyond it. But that itself is a big step. That's the first stop, first milestone in spirituality, saying, I am not body, I am soul. But beyond that, something else comes into picture. I don't know if we'll get much time to go through that second part today, but that second part is Krishna consciousness. Before that, once you realize that I'm not body, I'm soul, is just consciousness. And we here at ISKCON do not even focus on that. We go beyond that, right? So we'll go into that part a little bit towards the end. All right, so now he says, can you describe this present to me? Karmi is asking Nimai. So Nimai is telling him, in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 15, verse number 8. So I'll just capture some things over here saying, living entity in this material world carries different conceptions of life from one body to another as the air carries aromas. So it's like a fleeting thing. We think so great about our bodies, right? He's African, he's American, he's big, wow, how handsome he looks, wow, she's looking so beautiful. If you go to any actress, any Hollywood, Bollywood, Tollywood, whatever wood, any wood you go to, and then you ask them to give an interview, the first thing that they will say is, I'm not ready for it. Why? When you say, oh, do you have to prepare some question and answers? No, I have to do makeup, right? So you understand, see, this is the understanding, right? And it doesn't matter if you go to we go book distribution Saturday, door to door, right? And some of the people, we keep standing on the door or keep talking, right? Some people coming from Indian background, they are much more nice and they invite us. That's very nice. But some of the people are actually nice and they don't invite us. You know why? What is the hitch? The hitch is, my room is not clean. So, can you hold on for 1 second? And then they close the door and then clean things up and they say, now you're welcome. So because they want to be nice and they want to get you in. But the point is, this external part, this show part. So just like that, right? These conceptions are so important. And we don't realize that they are just like air carrying aromas. I mean, some matar paneer is being made and you get aroma and then you get stuck to it and then you realize there's some gulab jamun getting made, right? So these aromas are all coming around and they're like go away, right? You eat it and then you feel satisfied and that aroma doesn't excite you anymore. So, and what he's saying is, we are taking one body after another and quitting it to take another. So in brief, we are talking about not being myopic, but being a little long, distant sighted to say, what happens to me after this body, right? So here's a prison description. So prison is not a physical prison. It is a prison of our mind where we are saying, I believe in bodies. Some more description in verse 9. Living entity, thus taking another gross body, obtains a certain type of ear, eye, tongue, nose and sense of touch. Sorry about that. Sorry? Ear, eye, tongue, nose and sense of touch, which are grouped about the mind. So the mind is controlling these, and these things that we get, we think I have an ear and I have a nose. No, you have an ear and nose because you have a particular type of consciousness, and that consciousness is not elevated enough. We don't understand this. We think that's a pig's nose and this is my nose. But your nose is there because we were thinking about doing what humans are expected to do. So actually it says in Padma Purana, and that's a comparison, and I think Nimai should have given probably that comparison, but maybe it was too much for Karmi. In biological science, human beings are just one species, right? It's amazing to what extent our scriptures have gone in to understand this. They say there are 8.4 million species, but 400,000 species exist for human beings. 4 lakh species. I mean, imagine who would have done that kind of research to figure out what is the difference between them. And a biologist might say they are all bodies. Well, yeah, body-wise they are same. But in terms of consciousness, there's a little difference between them, right? How do you even understand this? It's impossible to even just fathom. And it doesn't look like it's some made-up number, right? I mean, if there were 2 or 5 or 10, you can understand someone just created a few of them, right? Intelligently, creatively one can do. I mean, I can try maybe create 5, 10 ones just now. But that's where my limit is, right? A human being, my mind. But imagine someone doing 4 lakh distinctions between what the various types of human beings are. This shows what level of depth is there available in our scriptures. And we just keep it for a toss. Yes, Prabhu.
I have a question, Prabhuji.
Yes, Prabhu.
Sorry if I'm interrupting.
No, actually that's good. And I don't know if I am capable to answer that. I'll try. But there are some learned people here, so maybe they can try and help me.
So the 4 lakh species of human beings, what is the difference? Is it just the difference in consciousness, or are there any other subtle or gross differences that you can shed some light on?
Oh, subtle differences. That's all that I know. I don't know much about this. But what I do know is it's all about consciousness differences. What we are saying is the Charles Darwin's theory, right, is about body evolving, right? So we are saying no, that is an effect. Just like Karmi got stuck, right, in that lifestyle magazine. We talked about all of these great concepts, and I told him, these are just effects of consciousness. Similarly, these are effects, right? For example, we can call him by activity a thief, right? Or a kleptomaniac, one who tries to steal. And I trained myself to do that at one point of time, because when I was a kid, they told me it's a cool thing to do. You can go to a shop and pick up things and no one will take care and you're a cool guy. I said, wow, this looks like a cool activity. Let me try doing it. So hopefully no one's recording and taking it. So what I'm saying is, I was trying to be a active, progressive karmi, trying to do cool things, because that's what the world around me said it's cool. All the college guys said that was cool. So, but anyway, I was caught one day, and luckily when I was caught, Krishna helped me, because the person who caught me was the uncle of a friend of mine, and this friend of mine told me how to do it. So he said, and I was putting things in my scooter, and he said, can I get those things back? And I was so shocked, and I was sweating and this and that, and then he didn't tell me anything, and he just told me one thing, saying, you shouldn't be doing that. Wow, actually that hit me more than if he had actually hit me or something, right? So what I'm saying is, you try to develop these consciousness. So for a fleeting moment, I developed that kind of a consciousness. So these consciousness actually in this material world, depending on what you want to do, what your environment is, what your karma is, what your surrounding is, what blessings, what grace you have, all of these things help shape up our life over here. And that's the distinction of how we lead our life here. The consciousness is the underlying subtle fact. All of these activities become the effect, how it actually transforms itself in this world, right? And maybe I should tell something good about me too, right? Because that way, if they ever use this in a court law, then they can always point out saying, yeah, Prabhu, but anyway. Yeah, Prabhu, go ahead. You have a comment?
Just a comment on the 400,000 species.
Yes, please, Prabhu.
The 400,000 species, I had I thought about this, because this comes in Bhagavad Gita repeatedly. So I was thinking in a different way. Maybe I may be wrong. For example, in snakes, there are different kinds of snakes. There is a king cobra, there is the yellow snake, and then there is rattlesnake, and there is African snake. Within snakes, there are they have found at least 25 to 50 major different species. So in human beings also, we have Chinese, we have Africans, we have Caucasians, we have maybe, it's a physical...
I don't think so, Prabhu. I think the consciousness goes beyond. But I'm sorry, I'm not trying to...
I may be wrong.
No, I don't know for perfect, but I think my suspicion is that it is not to do with the physical aspect, because I think the consciousness of a Chinese person or an American or Indian could be common, and they could have the same things. And I think it is, but you are, I think, right from one aspect. For example, they said, right, the varnas, right, you are not decided whether you're Brahmana or Kshatriya by where you're born, but by your qualities. But that said, most of the Brahmanas do get born to a Brahmanic family, because not everyone may have the opportunity to get judged or something. So the system is built around where most Brahmanas, because they need to develop as a Brahmana, that Jivatma gets born into a Brahmanical environment so they can get the right sanskaras to hone its skills. So I think what you're saying also has sense, but that, as I was saying, it is not the cause, it is the effect. The cause may be that the consciousness of that person, but the effect could be that he is born there. For example, you look at people from India in general, they are naturally a little more spiritual, right? In fact, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, if you're born in India, your duty is to go out and spread the mission. That's it, end of story. You don't have to get graduated with a guru with 500 disciples and get liberated and be able to show light and Prabhu Bhabut and all of those things. Despite that, he said that. Similarly, if you look at even coming from India, right? When India was going through a turmoil about 80, 100 years back, right? All this British Raj was there. One Mahatma Gandhi was born, and we call him Mahatma, right? And he did whatever was needed to be done that time. So he came with a particular consciousness. And similarly, after India got independence, the world also was kind of independent. Before that, if you notice, all of these European colonies had occupied the entire world, right? And around the time when India got independence, most of the other countries also got independence. Well, they got independence from physical bondage. But what happens to the mental emancipation, right? Freedom. And we don't think about these things. But God is a very big higher design. This is the golden age going on. And if you notice, another Mahatma was born, right? Not that time he was born, but his activity came out. Srila Prabhupada, right? He actually came out and started liberating, just like Mahatma Gandhi liberated Indians from the clutches of Britishers. Srila Prabhupada came out and started liberating human beings from the clutches of Maya. How these things happen, when do these things happen, is very difficult to contemplate, at least in Kali Yuga. But all we do is we recognize Mahatmas and we try to follow them. I think that's what it is. I think the consciousness part plays that effect there, and you can decipher from it, but it's very difficult because we are not in that age. So I think there are exceptions, but I think what you said is also right at a higher level. Yeah. Yes, yes. So I think that is what it is. But I think at a high level in Kali Yuga, what we need to focus on is good, better. Good and not so good. And if you get to good, do it. And if you get a higher good, then this good is not good anymore. Go to a higher good. And as you keep doing that, then ultimately you reach to this conclusion, which is what Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Nimais, actually gave out altogether 500 years back, saying, go for it. Go for Krishna consciousness. Consciousness, not good for Kali Yuga this time. Good at other times. This time, relatively, it is not good. So go for Krishna consciousness. So that's what it is about. So yes, I think that is how things have been described. So I think that is what our focus should be, to keep going for the better ones. And there is no concept of saying, oh, am I a traitor to my old philosophies? Everything in this material world is fallible. So don't think too much about getting attached. That's, I think, what it is. Anyway, I was in the prison. I was describing the prison, and I think I got a little carried away by the prison. This is what happens in the karmi world. So let's quickly jump out of the prison. And then he says, foolish cannot understand how a living entity can quit his body, what sort of body he enjoys under the spell of modes of nature. So only one comment there. Everyone in this world, when they lead their life, only think, then they're never going to die. And the person next door to them will die, and they have all the problems in the world, and here they'll try to help him, nice people, but they themselves never die, right? So that's what they think, because no one's planning for their own death, excepting putting money in the insurance, because that probably gets them a tax break. Anyway, so this is what it is. Famous photo from Bhagavad Gita, as it is from Srila Prabhupada. We are basically eternally stuck unless you do something about it. So then Karmi, this person who was meeting Nimai on this tree, that's what this story started about. This is a made up story. This story is not as it is, but I made it up for this perspective of this presentation for people who joined in late. So he says, ask him, are there any hopes? And then Nimai tells him, yes, transcendently situated in self-realization, can see all of this clearly. So that's our answer to people who says, can you show me God? And we will tell him, you can't see God as it is, but you can see God once you get into, once you're situated into self-realization. And not those whose minds are not developed. So your mind is not developed. You're not scratching here, you're still scratching here. So, all right. And then he says, those who have surrendered unto me can easily cross beyond it. So surrender, as we've seen, has been the underlying theme, right? That is what top level. So then he asks, how to do it? Karmi asks him, and Nimai tells him, with your activities dedicated to me, your mind intelligence fixed on me, you will attain me without doubt. So Bhagavad Gita 8.7 talks about this. We're running short of time, so I don't think we'll have time to go through the verses. So then Karmi asks him, when do you need to do this? Right? Okay, fine, I understand. But he's still thinking about his car, and I have to go out for a drive and my ice cream. So he's saying, when do you have to do it? So Nimai tells him, whatever state of being one remembers when he quits his body, that state he'll attain without fail, that state. So BG 8.6. So basically he's talking about the point of death. And Nimai tells him that, and Karmi jumps out of the tree. You know why? He said, okay, I got it. I need to surrender, and I need to do all of these things that you said, a thing, mind, intelligence onto you, and I need to do it at my death time. Cool. All right, I got it. See you. And he said, where are you going? He's like, see you at deathbed. I don't have to do this now, right? I have to do it when I'm dying. I still have many years to live. Before I die, I want to win $1 million, travel around the world, spoil my grandchildren, and experience everything once, and maybe find a way to live forever. And Nimai says, shucks, this guy didn't get it yet. So anyway, so then he says, stop doing what doesn't really work. What he's talked about doing things only at a fleeting moment, it doesn't work. For you to be able to do that, you have to understand there's an attachment tree. So Bhagavad Gita chapter 15 verse 1-2 talks about this imperishable banyan tree which has its roots upward, which is nourished by these modes of material nature. So you see these modes of material nature keep coming back and back over and over. That is the way life is led in this world. And the twigs are the object of senses, and we are bound by the fruitive actions. That is you. Karma, you karmi, that is where you are. And that is the reason you're not getting it. So Karmi was jumping off his tree, he stood back, And then he told him, Nimai tells him, you have to detach, you have to cut down this tree. This is the tree that grows back, right? So detach it with the axe of detachment. Cut it down. So then Karmi said, wow, if I am going to cut down the tree of attachment in this world, will I be left homeless? And he says, then Nimai tells him, thereafter one must seek that place from which having gone one never returns. And there you surrender to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So you're talking about all of these things, surrender. First you have to detach yourself. If you can't detach, you can't really surrender. Yeah, the act of cutting down the tree is also surrender, but that's not complete surrender. So you have to first cut it down. So then he says, oh wow, are there two worlds then? I mean, you're saying you have a place too? He said, yes, there is. And I will read out a verse, one line from the purport from Srimad Bhagavatam. Nimai tells Karmi, this beautiful material world is nothing but a shadowy reflection of the reality, the kingdom of God. So in the top half of this, I don't know if it's coming out very good on the recording, but the top half is a beautiful, beautiful world. And everything else, including the tree, is just a mere reflection. It's just the opposite side. That's a very cool concept if you look at it, just from a concept point of view, right? And the fact that it is actually a reality, it hits us. But we need to understand this. Everything that we do in this world is coming from the spiritual world. I get angry, I rob people, I trouble them, everything bad and obviously everything good. I am trying to be honest, I'm trying to be kind. Everything is, even me being kind is a perverted reflection of being kind in the spiritual world. When I'm kind here, because I'm still being selfish, that is the basic element of anything in this side of the world, we are selfish. We don't even realize how we are selfish. It's very, very deep, very, very in the core of our hearts. So we are selfish. Even when I help people in an earthquake victim, whatever, I keep thinking, okay, I did $50, I'm going to save $10.55 as tax rebate. See, I become very important. Same activity of charity in the spiritual world is selfless. How is it selfless? Krishna likes to eat pan, the beetle thing and that leaf that they chew in UP, northern India. And then whatever Gopi Manjari is actually an expert in that, Radharani will try to say, you go ahead and do it, because the focus there is not selfish, it is super selfish. It is not about ourselves, it is about super self, right? It's about Krishna. So very, very important how those aspects change. So what we do, good things over here in this world, is actually a perverted reflection, even if it is so-called good, of what happens in the spiritual world. So then Karmi understands, wow, so there are two worlds, and that is the better world. So that is what surrender will get me. So then Nimai tells him a little more about his world. He says, this Bhagavad Gita chapter 15 verse number 6, that supreme abode of mine is not illumined by sun or moon, nor by fire or electricity. Those who reach it never return to this material world. So now Karmi is saying, wow, that looks like pretty good. So then he describes Vaikuntha. We don't have time, but there's very good description of Vaikuntha in the Srimad Bhagavatam. One thing to note over here is that if you look at him, there are many jivas over here, and every one of them resembles Narayana. So he's so, if you really look at it, Dani, person who gives, right? God is the biggest giver, really. He is ready to even give his Swarupa to people who come down and live with him. And it's said that he can't even recognize Vishnu from Jiva, the spirit, once he reaches there, unless they turn around. So from the back, they all look alike, four-handed, everything. And you can see in this photo, that is actually the case. So a brief description, I think in a future lecture we can talk about it. So then he says, and to do that, you have to earn it, to be reaching there. To those who are constantly devoted to serving me with love, Bhagavad Gita chapter 10 verse 10, I give the understanding by which they can come to me. And then he says, earn it, and then you have to burn it. What do you have to burn? To show them special mercy, I dwelling in their hearts, destroy with shining lamp of knowledge the darkness born of ignorance. So out of ignorance we are staying in this world. Our heart is full of ignorance, and he burns it. And then Karmi says, good, I got it. So you're saying I don't have to come at my deathbed and have to be stick around? Wow, let me do this. How about I die right now and I am ready for love? Give it to me. Can you give it to me? And he says that I actually fell for you. So now Karmi is making a story. He's saying, I actually fell for you before I even realized I did. And love is God and you are God, and give it to me right now. Come on. So then Nimai says, hold on. It doesn't work like that either. First you said you'll come back to deathbed. So he says, that doesn't work. Now I'm asking you right now, that doesn't work. So he says, why doesn't work? So he tells him in chapter 4, verse number 11, he says, Nimai tells him, as all surrender unto me, I reward them accordingly. So, in other words, if your surrender is not 100%, just by you telling it, you will not get that result which you talked about. So, I'm in the responsive cooperation. Very good term. I actually caught this in Prabhupadaji's purport. I don't know, it's very well talked about. Damodar Siddhar Prabhu. Is this term a popular term? I haven't heard about this, but I was reading the purport yesterday. I thought it will make a good slide topic. So, what he's saying is, in SB 82438, Prabhupadaji written, so everyone naturally surrenders directly or indirectly. So that's what he's telling him. So what Nima is telling Karmi is, it's not that you are surrendering. You are anyway surrendering. It's how you surrender and to what extent you surrender that matters. Conditioned soul surrenders to the laws of material nature, and that's why your name is Karmi, because you like to drive your car. Whereas when you fully surrender, then material nature will not act on you. So that's when you get closer to me. So then he says, okay, I give up. I am going to do unconditional surrender. So now Karmi for the first time is talking a little bit of sense. It's not about surrender. It's about unconditional surrender. And then Nimai tells him, okay, fine, you passed. Again and again. So now if we have 5 minutes, let's try to read this verse from Srimad Bhagavatam. And we have Vamsidhari Prabhu here. Prabhu. We can hear from you, Prabhu. We don't get much opportunity for that. Yeah, we read this and every one line we'll repeat after you, Prabhu.
Krishnaya Vasudevaya
Krishnaya Vasudevaya
Haraye Paramatmane
Haraye Paramatmane
Pranataka Klesha Nasaya
Pranata Klesha Nashaya
Govindaya Namo Namaha
Govindaya Namo Namaha
Krishnaya Vasudevaya
Krishnaya Vasudevaya
Haraye Paramatmane
Haraye Paramatmane
Pranata Klesha Nashaya
Pranata Klesha Nashaya
Govindaya Namo Namaha
Govindaya Namo Namaha
Krishnaya Vasudevaya
Krishnaya Vasudevaya
Haraye Paramatmane
Haraye Paramatmane
Pranata Klesha Nashaya
Pranata Klesha Nashaya
Govindaya Namo Namaha
Govindaya Namo Namaha. Thank you, Prabhu. So now let's look at what he's saying. The translation for this is, again and again we offer our obeisances unto Lord Krishna, Hari the son of Vasudeva. That supreme soul Govinda vanquishes the suffering of all who surrender to him. So what we talked about surrender so far had changed its flavor. And what he's saying is, again and again, it's not a one-time activity. So that's one key thing. And now we're talking about Lord Krishna, the Hari, the son of Vasudeva. We are identifying more qualities about that person. It's not God anymore. It's the God, right? And that supreme soul, Govinda, and we already took 3 names over here, Krishna, Hari and Govinda, right? So we know that this kind of surrender is related to names, and each of these names have a beauty name themselves. So just by this, if any intelligent persons can draw certain conclusions saying that there is an aspect about surrender over here. So it's a very beautiful verse over here, and I think we are running short of time, but this is where he says passed, and then Nimai tells him, well, you passed, come join the party. And you can see Panchtattva over here, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is right in the middle. So we have 2 minutes, and before vanishing, I just want to give a quick recap. So what we did over here was, for people who joined late, we actually started by going into a top-down consciousness issue, and in that we heard that Gita says surrender, and there's 2 people who are talking to each other, who pick up fruits from a tree. So one is called Karmi and the other is called Namai, because he is into Nama, and he's a Nama Devta. The other is into cars and he's called Karmi, and he doesn't like it. And because he doesn't like to surrender, that's when he went to all this world of saying, I want a bottom-up approach on consciousness. And he went to the English language, didn't work out. It talks about the world. They went to psychology, and the psychologist said it keeps going up and down. They went to psychophysics, and that didn't work out very well. He went into hypnosis. He went to neuroscience, and it figured out the physical and mental are going apart. It doesn't help. And he went to sociology and figured out, wow, the free will is an illusion in the world of sociology as far as consciousness goes. He went to consciousness lifestyle. That didn't work out very well because what he thought were the cool things, mindedness and all of those things, state of being and just being present in ourselves, all of these were effects and not the cause. And then we figured out something cool called Gangsfeld effect, in which you put ping pong balls cut into halves in your eyes. And such a big concoction. I'm telling you, this is what this world is made of. When I read this, I really got really excited to present this in today's lecture. So then Nimai tells him, wow, that's a big concoction. And he talks about all these gurus, they're giving a lot of concepts. People don't go through official disciplic succession. I said, you can do is, don't get rid of money, don't worry about money. And then this karmic person says, okay, fine, if you don't want money, give it to me. So you see how this karmic world was. I says, then I can do yoga. And he puts his leg over here. And then Nimai tells him, well, yoga doesn't work very much in your dreams, because the only thing that you'll do in that kind of yoga is, are we there yet? Are we there yet? After I go to Nirvana, then I can go and watch a movie from Amitabh Bachchan. So then he said, okay, I want to be a Jnani. And the only thing the Jnanis talk about is, what is the other guy thinking? Because they have all these mystic powers. So they're thinking about, are you thinking what I'm not thinking? So it doesn't work out very well. They're talking about Kundalini Yoga. And then Nimai tells him, if you do Kundalini Yoga, you'll be myopic. Your third eye chakra will need a contact lens. And then he says, I give up. And that's when we went into surrender. And Nimai says, did you just say that? So these two people that we talked about come from, I think, Padma Purana. They are representative of those two birds that are in our heart sitting. One of us is us, soul, small, 1/10,000th part of here. Right? And here was that cool thing where he says, God is spirit difference. And he says, the other part is me, God. Everything that you see around here is me. And by the way, everything that you don't see around here is also me. And you, 1/10,000th the tip of a hair. So that's how he tries to tell him everything. And he tells him, you're very unfavorably disposed. You cannot get out of this world, this Maya energy, and you're in a material prison. Everything that you think is cool is, sorry, it's not good. And he describes the prison, how you keep taking bodies, and he says, you're eternally stuck in this world. And then he asks for any hopes. And then that's when he says, if you dedicate yourself to me, then he realizes, okay, when do I have to do it? Or you have to do it at the deathbed. So then when he starts running away, saying, okay, then I will see you later, because before deathbed I have to do many things, earn $1 million and things like that. So Karmi and Nimai are having this dialogue. And then he says, stop. And that's when things start getting serious. He talks about detachment tree. And then he talks about the spiritual and material world. And then he talks about Vaikuntha. And that's when Karmi really gets interested into going into spirituality. And then he says, I want instant love. And finally, they talk about surrender. And that's when he says, you have passed. So it's very key we understand this concept, because this dialogue is what actually happens. We just forget it. So at that point of time, I want to say thank you. Let's stop over here. Sorry I went overboard. That's it. Anyone want to say something? Otherwise you can say. Right. Thank you. Hare Krishna. Thank you. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. समस्त भक्तगण की जय। वांछा कल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिंधुभ्यश्च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो हरे कृष्ण।